When Dr. Umar Johnson appeared on camera that night, people expected thunder, not confession. The air felt strange before he even spoke. His voice still carried that preacher's boom, but his eyes looked tired, like a man cornered by his own mission. He said he needed to address an offer. For a moment, no one moved. Then he dropped it. Someone had tried to buy the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, the same school he had once called untouchable, sacred, the key to black liberation. The chat froze. His tone faltered, almost uncertain, as he repeated himself, they offered to purchase the academy. It didn't sound like victory. It sounded like surrender trying to disguise itself as strategy. Behind him, stacks of papers and boxes glowed under dim light, like the physical evidence of a decade of exhaustion. For 10 years, Dr. Umar Johnson had built his image on unshakable faith. He called himself the Prince of Pan-Africanism, the man who would build a school brick by brick, funded only by the people. He'd told supporters to skip Starbucks, cut vacations, and invest in a dream bigger than themselves. Now, that dream suddenly had a price tag. His followers felt a chill. The same man who shouted, "Never sell our institutions," was now weighing a sale. Supporters looked heartbroken. Critics smelled blood. Within minutes, the internet turned his live stream into wildfire. Clips exploded across Twitter and TikTok. Old videos of him preaching about independence were spliced beside the new confession, the contrast brutal. "We will never sell," echoed beside, "We got an offer." It was the kind of irony that burns faster than scandal. But then came the twist nobody saw coming. Dr. Umar Johnson announced he had joined OnlyFans.at first. It sounded like satire. He insisted it was serious. "It's for political and educational content," he said, setting the subscription at a divine-sounding $111 a month. The number, he claimed, held ancestral meaning, nothing indecent, no nonsense below the belt. But the internet doesn't do nuance. The moment people heard OnlyFans, the jokes wrote themselves. Screenshots of his blank page went viral under captions like $111 and still no school. The same man who mocked influencers for selling themselves was now selling subscriptions. What followed wasn't just mockery. It was betrayal in real time. The school had been promised since 2014, every year came with a new deadline, every deadline faded into silence. The building in Wilmington, once painted as a monument of independence, still sat cold and unopened. Paint peeling, doors chained, windows dull. So when Dr. Umar Johnson said selling the property would make him comfortable, the word struck deep. People hadn't donated for his comfort, they donated for legacy. Supporters who had once posted receipts like trophies began posting them like regrets. One woman showed her PayPal confirmation from years ago with a caption that bled honesty, "I skipped rent for that dream." Another wrote, "He told us we were building a future, now he's talking about comfort." The internet split in two. Some defended him, saying he was human, struggling like everyone else. Others said the mask had slipped, that the man preaching self-reliance had turned into his own hustle. Still, Dr. Umar Johnson did what he always did when cornered, he flipped the blame. "If you don't want me to sell, family, then fund the mission," he roared. His voice cracked but his confidence didn't. It wasn't a plea, it was a challenge. The faithful rallied again, sending donations like confessions. Others, disillusioned, quietly logged off. The movement began to fracture, and just when it seemed the story couldn't twist further, he announced a new idea. He was searching for a female lecture partner. Not a wife, he clarified, but an energy twin. Someone who matched his spirit, shared his militancy, and wouldn't flinch under hate. To critics, it was a smokescreen, a distraction from the storm. To die-hard fans, it was destiny unfolding live. Within days, women flooded timelines with videos auditioning, quoting Pan-African speeches, pledging loyalty. But social media turned it into parody. Memes popped up calling it The Bachelor, Conscious Edition. Behind the jokes, fatigue grew heavy. 10 years of speeches, fundraisers, and live streams, still no classrooms, no students, just slogans. Locals in Delaware whispered that the building was decaying, that taxes were behind, that the dream was slipping. Meanwhile, Dr. Umar Johnson kept shouting, "Peace and Black Power," into his camera, collecting donations like applause. He thanked contributors from Ghana, Jamaica, and Nigeria, using their support as proof that his mission was global. But even his loudest words began to sound like echoes of a man trying to convince himself. Then came the documentaries. YouTubers dropped exposés titled, "The School That Never Opened," and "The $1 Million Mirage." Podcasters replayed his old rants beside his new confessions. A viral clip of a tearful donor whispered, "My nephew's grown now, still no school." That video hit harder than any meme. It wasn't hate. It was heartbreak. Still, Dr. Umar Johnson refused to retreat. He called the backlash spiritual warfare. He compared himself to Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X, claiming the agents of confusion were trying to destroy a righteous mission. For some, that defiance rekindled faith. For others, it confirmed delusion. Small donations trickled in, just enough to keep him visible, just enough to keep the story alive. Because even when belief died, spectacle survived, every headline kept him trending. Every insult became a sermon. When people mocked the $111 price tag, he said it symbolized divine completion. When bloggers posted unpaid bills, he said the haters were lying. When followers questioned his integrity, he said they failed their spiritual test. The cycle was perfect, outrage in, attention out, but under the thunder, fatigue showed. Between his fiery bursts, Dr. Umar Johnson began pausing longer, rubbing his forehead, whispering prayers under his breath. One night, his voice cracked as he said, "I fight every day to keep those doors from closing." For a second, the mask slipped. He wasn't the unshakable prince. Just a tired man buried under his own prophecy. But almost instantly, he switched back into rhythm. Cash App, PayPal, P.O. Box 9634, the fight continues. By now, Dr. Umar Johnson had evolved into something beyond himself. He was both brand and belief, villain and victim, preacher and performer. Outrage wasn't his enemy anymore, it was his income. And as chaotic as it all seemed, he understood one truth better than anyone: in an era where attention is currency. Noise is survival. As the live stream ended and the screen dimmed to black, thousands of viewers stayed frozen, half angry, half enthralled. Because love him or hate him, Dr. Umar Johnson had done it again, turned contradiction into conversation, disappointment into devotion, chaos into relevance. The man who promised a school had built something else instead, a spectacle that refuses to end. The next sunrise, Dr. Umar Johnson had turned from preacher to trending topic once again. The internet wasn't just whispering, it was roaring. His name flooded every feed, every meme page, every podcast thumbnail. Twitter threads multiplied like wildfire, dissecting every sentence from the night before. Some said he was exposing the truth about how hard it was to build black institutions alone. Others said he'd finally admitted what they'd known all along, that the dream was never about education, it was about him. Still, even the loudest critics couldn't deny one thing: no one commanded chaos like Dr. Umar Johnson. When he went live again that evening, sweat glistened under the lights. His camera leaned slightly to the side, like even the equipment was tired. His tone swung between exhaustion and fury. "Family," he shouted, voice cracking, "we under attack." His chat exploded instantly, flames, fists, flags, laughter. He said the agents of confusion were twisting his words, that he hadn't said he would sell the academy, only that a crossroads had appeared. He claimed the ancestors were testing loyalty. "This is how they weed out the weak," he cried, eyes blazing. Every insult online became a prophecy fulfilled. Every meme became proof that he was chosen, but outside the digital war zone, reality didn't blink. Donors began uploading old PayPal receipts from 2014, 2015, 2016, small amounts that, together, told a story of faith misplaced. One woman's post went viral: "We didn't donate for live streams. We donated for classrooms." Another wrote, "My son started college before that school even opened." Their pain wasn't theatrical, it was real. For years, they believed in a man who convinced them that independence could be bought one $20 donation at a time. And now they were left staring at screenshots in silence. Still, Dr. Umar Johnson didn't retreat. He doubled down harder. Each live stream began the same: peace and black power, family. But the warmth was gone. His rhythm had turned militant. He told followers that enemies were working overtime to destroy a decade of divine labor. He insisted that even if they sold the property, it would only be to multiply the mission. One moment he said he'd never sell. The next he hinted at expanding into 2 smaller schools. His contradictions became part of the sermon. The confusion, intentional or not, kept people talking. Meanwhile, Wilmington locals began taking pictures of the FDMG property. The boarded windows, cracked pavement, and weeds told a story no sermon could. Spread online under the hashtag where is the school, turning curiosity into collective disappointment. Commentators called it a digital illusion, a movement that lived louder online than it ever did in real life. One blogger said, "He's building attention, not education." That quote stung, not because it was cruel, but because it was starting to sound true still. Even as the criticism piled up, something magnetic lingered. People couldn't look away. On TikTok, creators danced to remixed clips of his speeches. On YouTube, channels analyzed him like an ongoing series, breaking down every contradiction, every fundraising strategy, every emotional meltdown. He had become the content. Even those who despised him contributed to his visibility. In a strange way, his critics kept him alive, but behind the performances, the cracks widened. Dr. Umar Johnson's voice began to lose its thunder. His sermons grew longer but less sharp. Sometimes he'd drift mid-sentence, stare into the camera, then snap back with sudden fire. "They think I'm tired, family, but I'm built different," he shouted one night, pounding his chest. Yet even through the passion, a trace of panic leaked through. The donations weren't what they used to be. The audience was shrinking. The loyalty was thinning. Then came the whispers, quiet at first, then louder. Rumors that the state of Delaware might auction the FDMG property for unpaid taxes. Screenshots of alleged notices began circulating, blurring the line between truth and trolling. Former supporters posted videos in tears, saying they felt used. One woman's live stream broke hearts. "I believed this man would change lives. Now I just feel foolish." Her voice cracked halfway through, and millions watched. In that moment, Dr. Umar Johnson stopped being just a public figure. He became a symbol of every broken promise people ever wanted to believe in, and then, just when people thought he might disappear, he reignited the chaos himself. Another live. Another announcement. Another twist. This time, about his long-awaited lecture partner. He said she must be divinely African, revolutionary in spirit, unwavering in loyalty. He warned that any woman tied to his critics would be rejected. The internet howled. TikTokers turned it into skits. Twitter joked that he was hosting Pan-African Idol. Memes showed him holding casting flyers in front of the crumbling school. The ridicule was relentless, and yet, somehow, he smiled through it all. Because every joke was engagement. Every insult was oxygen, even his silence became strategy. When people mocked his OnlyFans again, he turned it into prophecy. "The ancestors told me," he said, "the same platform they use for lust, I will use for liberation." It didn't matter whether anyone believed him, it mattered that they couldn't stop talking. And they didn't. Still, there were nights when his bravado faded. During one live stream, a follower commented, "What happened to the classrooms, Brother Umar?" He froze. The chat waited. After a long pause, he whispered, "The classrooms still exist, but the faith don't." For a fleeting second, the preacher vanished, and only the man remained, weary, isolated, trapped by his own creation. Then, as if embarrassed by the honesty, he slammed his hand on the table and roared, "Cash App, PayPal, P.O. Box 9634, the ancestors watching who gives and who don't." By now, Dr. Umar Johnson had stopped building a school. He was building a narrative. His story had grown larger than the campus, larger than any physical achievement. He had become the blueprint for a new kind of preacher, one whose congregation existed online, whose sermons ran on Wi-Fi, whose temple was engagement. Every scandal only expanded his legend. The man who preached liberation had become a living paradox, free only when under fire. As the weeks passed, new videos emerged, alleged documents, tax notices, donation tallies. None of it was definitive, but all of it was believable. The truth didn't even matter anymore. His name had transcended facts. He wasn't just Dr. Umar Johnson, the educator. He was Dr. Umar Johnson, the phenomenon. His final live stream of the month became theater. He looked straight into the lens, eyes fierce but tired. "Family," he said softly, "they trying to bury me before the school rises. But I promise you, history gone, tell the truth." His chat exploded, half hearts, half clown emojis, half rage. It was chaos and worship mixed together. And that's exactly how he liked it. Because maybe the storm wasn't the punishment, maybe it was home. Outside, the Wilmington property stood silent, forgotten under the afternoon sun. The gates rusted. The paint peeled. But inside the digital world, Dr. Umar Johnson was immortal. Every fall became another rise. Every scandal, another sermon. Because he wasn't selling education anymore, he was selling survival, and maybe that's what this whole story was always about. Not a school, not an institution, but an idea. That conviction could be currency, that belief could outlive reality. The building might never open, but the brand never closed. So now, when Dr. Umar Johnson leans toward his camera and says, "Peace and Black Power, family," the world still listens. Some mock. Some cheer. But all stay tuned. Because whether he builds, sells, or simply keeps talking, one truth remains: he turned faith into fame and controversy into a career, and as the lights fade, the donations trickle, and the chat floods one last time, the legacy stands clear. He may lose the school, but he'll never lose the spectacle. Because in a world fueled by noise, Dr. Umar Johnson has mastered the one art that guarantees immortality, staying unforgettable.